So over the past year or so, I've seen the price of AAA video games go from $60 to $70, and I recently saw an article saying that GTA 6 could be $100 on release. Now, surprisingly, I have seen a very little amount of backlash for the increase in price. Usually, when a product increases in price, people seem to be pretty upset about it and have something negative to say. But I've actually seen people defending the increase in price and even saying that Grand Theft Auto 6 being $100 on release is worth it because it's going to be such a big and great game. Now, I have no doubt that Grand Theft Auto 6 will be great, but my main point to make is that games do not need to be increasing in price. And I think one of the things that the developers do, or maybe not so much the developers as it is like the publishers, but they try and make this sort of point to say that, oh, well, video games are, they're so much harder to make nowadays. They take so much more resources. They take longer. And so they kind of make it seem like the price increase is justified. But that's just not the case. Now, I'm not arguing with the point that video games are harder to make. Like, everyone knows they are. They take longer, they take more resources. The problem is video games are not just making money from box office costs anymore. Microtransactions exist, and the microtransaction market is huge. I mean, AAA titles try to put microtransactions in like every game possible. And it's not like these companies are just making like a little bit of cash here and there from microtransactions. No, they are making like large amounts of profit, like a lot of money. And I think another point to bring into this is the video game market just in general is like way bigger than it ever has been in the past. And so not only are you selling more copies of a box office game, you're also selling more microtransactions. There's just more people buying into the game. Now, let's say Grand Theft Auto 6, for example. I think Grand Theft Auto 6 might be one of the most hyped up games I have ever seen. I mean, the trailer got an insane amount of views. I see comments all over Instagram talking about, oh, we got this before Grand Theft Auto 6, super hyped up. If this game comes out at $100, it's not because it needs to, it's because they know people will pay $100 to play it. So according to Google, GTA 5 has made $8.5 billion just off of box office sales, so that does not include microtransactions. Now let's say GTA 6 releases and it sells half the amount of copies. Even if it comes out at $60, that's still $4 billion just in box office sales. That does not include microtransactions. And I think with the amount of hype that GTA 6 is generating, I would not be surprised if this game outsells GTA 5. So they're already looking at a crazy amount of profit. Now, I don't want to sound like a complete hater, and I do want to bring up the point that apparently GTA 6, from what I've seen, is supposed to have a budget of like $2 billion, which is probably the biggest game or budget for a game like ever by far. And I think like if the game were to come out at $100, I don't necessarily think that that's completely unjustified. The problem is pick one or the other. Are you raising the box office price to $100 or are you putting microtransactions in it? Why do we need both of them? We do not need both of them. On top of this, I would not be surprised. In fact, I'm almost certain GTA 6 will come out as a live service game. If they're pouring this much money and resources into the game, they're probably hoping to make a profit from it for years to come. I mean, there's just no other way to look at it. I'm sure they're expecting to sell a lot of microtransactions and probably continually pulling a profit from it for a long time. And when you look how long it took, between GTA 5 to GTA 6, they made a lot of money just from the game being out for a long time. So I'm sure they're going to try and capitalize on that in GTA 6 and continually pulling a profit over the next few years or until the next game comes out, which could be a very, very long time. Now, we're in this kind of unique situation where I feel like the game industry itself is bigger than it's ever been, yet it feels like the games that are coming out are like uninspired and maybe worse than they've ever been. Granted, we do get a few rare gems every here and there, but in general, I think the games that are coming out are just like not very good. And I think a really good example of this is Avowed. Recently released, and I wouldn't say the game is terrible or anything. It's just generally unremarkable. It's just okay, right? And this game came out with a $70 price tag. Now, the thing that's kind of unfortunate is I'm sure Avowed had a pretty big budget, and I'm sure it took like quite a bit to develop in terms of cost. However, I'm not paying $70 for that game. I would maybe pay $30 for that game, but $70? Absolutely not. And so we're in this kind of like weird situation where games come out, they don't sell a lot of copies, and then they think, well, the development of costs for games is going up, so we need to raise the price. But the reason you're losing money on games is not from the price tag, it's because you're literally just making bad games. If you make a good game and sell it, it will make profit. 100% it will. And I think good examples of these is like Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring. Both, I'm sure, had a pretty large budget to make. When they came out, they sold a record number of copies. And the game industry is huge now. I mean, you can see this on just like Steam games. Even indie games sell like an extraordinary amount of copies just from being a really good game. So the price of these games is not the issue. It's the fact that they're just making bad quality games. And the entire point of this video was just kind of bring like awareness to the issue that these prices and stuff keep rising, because I don't think it's talked about enough. I mean, like I said in the beginning of the video, I've even seen some people like defending the price of these games increasing. And the only person that loses when these prices increase is the consumer. And I think this might sound a little harsh, but I think it's important that people realize whenever one of these big companies shuts down a game studio because the game they released flopped, that is not the consumer's fault. That is their own fault, and the consumer should not have to pay for that. And it's just unfortunate because as someone who really enjoys video games and has for a long time, I feel like greed has just kind of ruined the industry. I think microtransactions have probably been one of the most detrimental things that have happened to the industry. And now you have box office costs and microtransactions, and it's just never enough. Like there's always more. They're always trying to make more and more money. And I think that as time has gone on, the industry has just gotten worse and worse and more stale, and games have just come out and got just in general just bad. Like they're just not as enjoyable as they used to be. And I think a big part of this is just straight down to corporate greed. I mean, even games like Call of Duty, for example, it feels like nowadays the entire purpose for Call of Duty to even exist is just to sell skins and microtransactions. I can't enjoy the game like I used to. And I feel like every game is starting to fall into this category, and it's just unfortunate to see. And I think a lot of people are already kind of aware of this, but it doesn't seem like people really give much of a thought to it or seem like they really fuss about it too much. And I think it is important that people start to actually like take a stand against it and start not buying microtransactions, or at least start telling people like, if you're going to have microtransactions in your game, do not put a box office cost. Now I'm going to wrap up the video here. I know this wasn't like professionally done or anything. I just kind of want to come on and rant a little bit. But if you did like the video, I appreciate it if you leave a like. And I'd be really, really curious to hear from you guys what you think. Are the price increases justified in games? Are we getting scammed? Maybe I'm just overreacting, or maybe you agree with me. So if you wanted to leave a comment on that and let me know, I would really, really much appreciate to hear your feedback. And I also want to mention I stream almost every day on Twitch. So if you're interested in coming on and just chatting, I love to discuss and talk about random topics, even if they're not video game related. So appreciate any time someone comes over and check me out. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you later.